Hi you guys, today we're going to be making this granny square ruffle skirt. I am going to be using a weight for acrylic yarn. You can use any yarn size, just use the corresponding hook. I am using a 5mm crochet hook. We will need some scissors and a needle. To start this project, we're going to need a measurement. That measurement will be our hip. So I'm going to be using a 45-inch hip measurement. Now because I'm using this weight for acrylic yarn, I know it's going to stretch. So I'm going to subtract 2 inches. So I'm going to be using 43 inches. Now I'm going to divide that 43 by 6. So whatever number you get, if you're using a yarn that stretches such as acrylic, I would suggest subtracting 2 or 3 inches because it does stretch. Okay, if your yarn does not stretch, you can use your exact measurement. And then we are dividing by 6 because we are going to be using 6 granny squares to equal our hip measurement. So this skirt is 6 granny squares wide. That is why we're dividing by 6. Okay, once you've divided your hip measurement by 6, I'm going to get 7 point some change. I'm going to go ahead and just use 7 inches. So 7 inches is going to be the width of each granny square. So whatever number you get, you divide your hip by 6, and that number is going to be your granny square measurement. If you don't get an exact number like I didn't, I just rounded down. This is actually going to be 7.1 something. I'm just going to use the 7. And again, that is because I know my yarn is going to stretch, and 7 inches is going to be the measurement of each granny square. Okay, so to make our granny square, we're going to make a magic ring. To do so, we'll take our yarn, wrap it around our 2 fingers, make an X, and leave it there. Okay, so we have an X on this side, and then this side is our 2. Now you'll go under your first, pull your second under, grab your working yarn, and pull through. You can also do the chain 4 method if you prefer. I do use a magic circle. Now once you have your circle, we are going to chain 3. That's going to count as our first double crochet. Now we're going to place 2 more double crochets into the ring. So we'll yarn over, insert our hook, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, and we'll place 1 more, yarn over, insert your hook, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2. Okay, so that's going to be our first cluster. Now we're going to chain 2, and we're going to place another cluster, which is going to be 3 double crochets. So we'll place 3 more double crochets into our circle. Okay, so we did 3 double crochets. Now we have our second cluster. Now we'll chain 2, and we're going to repeat this 2 more times so that we have 4 clusters. Okay, so now we have 3. We'll chain 2, place our last cluster. Okay, so now we have 4 clusters into our circle. Now we'll take our tail, our beginning tail, and we'll pull that tight to close our circle. And now we have the first round of our granny square. Now for mine, I'm going to change the color every round. So at this point, I'm going to cut my yarn. Okay, I left a little tail. Now to color change, I will take my next color. I'm going to take my new color and tie it to that tail that I just cut from my previous. Okay, then I'm going to take my previous color and tie that to my new color. Okay, now it should look like this. And we will pull these tight. Now we should have one knot here. And then we will cut our excess yarn. And this is how we will color change without having to weave in our ends for every color. Okay, so now we have our new yarn attached to our old yarn. Now we're going to chain 2 to finish off that round 1. And we're going to slip stitch into the 3rd chain of our beginning chain 3. Okay, slip stitch into that 3rd chain. Okay, and now we will start round 2. We will chain 3. Place 2 more double crochets into that corner. Now we have the first cluster of our corner. We have our chain 3, 2 more double crochets. Now we will chain 1, place a cluster into the next corner, okay, and now we're going to be creating a corner, so we will chain 2 and place 3 more double crochets into that same corner space. Okay, now we have a corner. So every corner will consist of 1 cluster, chain 2, 1 more cluster. Now we will chain 1. We're going to place 3 double crochets into the next corner. Chain 2, 3 more double crochets into that same corner space. Okay, and we're just going to repeat that, creating corners, creating our last corner here. We're creating our 3rd corner, so 3 double crochets, chain 2, and then 3 more double crochets. Now we are coming back to our beginning corner that we started, so we will chain 1, place 3 double crochets into that corner space, okay, and now we have round 2. Okay, so at this point I'm going to color change again. I'm going to do the same. I'm going to cut my yarn, attach my new yarn by tying it to my previous yarn, and then taking my previous yarn and tying it to my new yarn. Okay, so we will chain 2 to finish off that round, slip stitch into the chain 3 space of our beginning chain. Okay, now we'll start round 3 by chaining 3, 2 more double crochets into that first corner space. Okay, and then round 3 is a little different because now we don't only have corners, we also have our middle space. So same thing, we'll chain 1, place a cluster into this middle space here, so 3 double crochets. Chain 1. Now we're at a corner, so we will place 3 double crochets. We'll chain 2. And we'll place 3 more double crochets into that same space, creating our corner. Okay, so chain 1. And then the pattern just repeats itself. Okay, so into every middle space, we'll place 3 double crochets. Into every corner space, we will place 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 more double crochets. Okay, so I'm going to finish this round. I'll meet you at the end, and then I will show you what we're going to do next. Okay, so I just finished my round 3. I did cut my yarn. At this point, we can start measuring our granny square. Okay, so before we figured out how many inches we need each granny square. Mine was about 7. So you'll measure your granny square. Right now, I'm almost at 4 inches. Okay, so now we'll just continue rounds until we meet that measurement. Mine will be 7 inches. I want you to keep in mind, it's fully customizable. I am doing a base color. My base color is going to be this cream off-white color. So keep in mind that your last round, you want to be your base color. Okay, so when you are measuring, say I needed 4 inches. At this point, my next color would be my main color, if that makes sense. I will show you when I get there. I'm going to keep adding colors until I am almost at my 7 inches. And then once I get there, I will meet you back. Okay, so at this point, I have done 5 rounds. My granny square is measuring a little over 6 inches. So I'm going to do 1 more round to get close to my 7. So my last round is going to be my main color. Okay, so I will attach my yarn one last time. And we will complete this granny square. Same as before. I'll go ahead and do that now that I have my last color. I'll do that and I'll meet you once I've added my last color, and then we will move on to the next steps and showing how to connect our squares. Okay, so here we go. I have my main granny square that I finished off, and then I went ahead, I actually made all 11 of them. So as you can see, I don't have my main color attached yet. So I have my 5 rounds, and then my next round on each square is going to be my main color. And the reason I did that, we'll start with any one. Now we will add our main color. And I do this because I don't want to sew. I hate sewing. I think this is easier. And again, we don't have all these ends to weave in, or I just find this way easier. Okay. So this is the join as you go method. So I'm going to start my next round just like before. We'll chain 3. Okay, and then this time what we'll do, we're going to do the whole side. We'll place 1 cluster into our corner, and then we'll stop at our corner space, and I'll show you how we'll attach it. Okay, so finish the side and end here. Okay, so here we are. We're coming up at our first corner. We're going to place a cluster, so 3 double crochets. Three double crochets, then we're going to chain 1. We're going to take our finished square, and we're going to take our hook into a corner of our finished square, insert our hook, and we're going to make a slip stitch. So we'll pull our working yarn through, we'll pull it through both loops, and then we'll chain 1, and now we have that corner attached. Now we'll place 3 double crochets into our corner of our working square, creating that corner. Okay, now we will chain 1, and then we're going to go into each corresponding space of our finished square and slip stitch. So we chain 1, we'll go into the next space of our finished square, slip stitch, and then we will place our cluster into the next space of our working square. We'll chain 1 into the next space of our finished square, slip stitch, place a cluster into the next space of our working square, chain 1. Again, we're going to do the same. We'll place our cluster, chain 1, slip stitch into the corresponding space on the other square. Chain 1, slip stitch. We'll repeat this all the way until we get to the corner, the next corner. Chain 1. Okay, so now we're at the corner of our working square. We're going to place a cluster. So place your first 3 double crochets. Okay, and then again we're going to chain 1. We're going to slip stitch into our corner of our finished square. Now we're going to chain 1 again because it's a corner, and place another cluster into the same corner space of our working square. Okay, and now our squares are connected. So now we'll continue this square like normal. We'll chain 1, place a cluster in each space, do our corners, okay, and we'll just finish this square like normal. We'll slip stitch into the chain 3 space at the end, chain 1, and fasten off our yarn. Okay, and I will show you that when we get there. I'm going to go ahead and finish this square, and then I'll meet you at the end of it. Okay, here I am at the last corner space. We'll place our last cluster. Chain 2. Slip stitch into the 3rd chain. Chain 1. Cut our yarn. Fasten off. And then there we go. Now we have 2 squares together. Now I'm going to take my next one, and literally we're going to do the same thing. We're going to attach this square here, and we're going to go around. Remember, we're doing a total of 6. So now I have 2. I'm going to go ahead and attach them. The last one is going to be a little different because we do need to connect both sides. So I'm going to connect all of mine until I am on my 6th one. Once I reach my 6th granny square, I'll meet you back. We'll attach that and then we'll move on. Okay, so here we are. I just attached square number 6, my last square. So I added my color, attached my yarn, or attached my square on this side. Then I came up the other side like normal, Now that we're on the last side, we're going to attach it so that it creates our circle. Okay, so we go into our corner with a cluster. So just like before, one cluster, chain one, then we'll slip stitch, we'll grab the other end of all of our squares. So it should be back to our first color, or our first square that we did. Slip stitch into the corner, chain one, place a cluster. Okay, so now we're closing it off and creating our circle. So we'll chain one, slip stitch into the next space, we'll place a cluster. So literally the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and do that and then meet you at the end, and we'll finish off this. Okay, so now we're doing the last space. And place our last cluster into our last corner. Okay, so we did our 3 double crochets into the last corner, chain one, slip stitch into the corner, chain one more, and then this time we're going to slip stitch into our chain 3 of the beginning. So slip stitch into that chain 3 space, chain one. Now we'll cut our yarn and fasten off. Okay, now all of our squares are connected. We have our 6 squares connected. This should be our hip measurement. Okay, now I will show you guys how to attach the squares for the next row. We're going to, just like before, except a little different, which I will show you. I'm going to attach my main color. I'm going to continue until I get to the first corner, just like before, and then I'll show you guys how to attach it. It's pretty much the same thing. It is a little different. So I will go ahead and do that. I'll meet at this corner and show how to attach our second row. Okay, so here I am at my first corner. I'm going to place my first cluster. Then I'm going to chain one. Then we're going to grab our work. Okay, and decide where you're going to attach. So this square is going to go under this square. Now instead of slip stitching directly into the corner of this square, I'm actually going to go diagonal. Okay, the reason we do that is because we don't want a gap right here in the corner. So I'm actually going to, this square is going to go right here under this green one, but I'm going to slip stitch into the corner of this granny square, the square next to it. Chain one, place our cluster back into our working square, creating our corner. Okay, now we're going to chain one. Then we're going to continue attaching it to the square that we were attaching it to. So we're going to skip that corner of this square. We're going to slip stitch into the first space. Okay, and then just like before, we will attach it all the way until the corner. So the only difference is each square we are connecting the corners into the square next to the square we're attaching it to. I don't even know if that made sense. But that's how we're going to attach them. The corners are going to be attached diagonally rather than straight up into the corner of the square that we're attaching to. That is just to prevent a large gap. If we're just attaching straight up, all of our connecting corners, there's going to be a hole. I really hope that makes sense. I don't know how else to explain it. But now I'm at the next corner. So we're going to place a cluster. Okay, and then again, we're not connecting our corner to this square above. We're going to go diagonal. So I'm going to connect it to this blue one over here. Chain one, and then continue. And we're going to do that with every square. I'll show you the next one as well, and how we'll repeat that. So this next one that goes under here will connect to this corner. Okay, so now that we've connected it, now we're just finishing off this first square like normal. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and finish that, fasten off, and then I'll show you how we'll attach the second square and the rest of them. Okay, so now we are attaching our second square of round 2. This one's going to be a little different because this one we are going to be attaching on 2 sides rather than 1. Okay, so we're going to start at the bottom of the square we just attached. I made my cluster. I'm going to chain 1. Then I'm going to attach to the bottom corner of that first square. Chain 1. And then we're going to just connect it like normal until we get to the other corner. Okay, so I did my other cluster. I'm going to slip stitch. I'm going to finish this up real quick and then I'll get to the corner. Okay, here we are at the corner of our second square of row 2. We're going to place our first cluster into that corner. So we did our 3 double crochets, chain 1, and then remember we're not going into any of these other squares other than the one diagonal. So now we're going to do the corner of our green square, our first square over here that we attached to. So we'll slip stitch into the corner space of that square. Okay, now we'll chain 1, place our other cluster, chain 1. Okay, now we're going to attach it to the square right above it. Again, skipping that corner. Okay, and then I'm going to show you why we go diagonal. Okay, so here, now all 4 corners are connected. If we went straight up here and straight up here, there would be a hole in the middle. Okay, that's the best way that I can explain why we do that. It prevents a hole and it looks neater. Okay, so now we're just going to continue that. Now I'm attaching to the square above, and then it'll be just like the rest. I'll continue my square like normal, fasten off, add my next color. Every color now is going to start at the bottom, attach up and across, and finish off. So now we're going to continue that until we get to our very last square. Our last square is going to be different once again because we'll be attaching 3 sides. So I'm going to continue adding mine and I'll meet you guys at the last square. Okay, so here I am. I'm attaching my last square. So I connected all of them just like before. And then we're just going to connect this like we finished off round 1. I did slip stitch into my corner. And then we're just doing the same thing except attaching it to the first square of our round. Okay, that way we're closing off our square. Okay, so just like before. Okay, and then this is our last square. And then we are done with the body and we will move on to the next part, which is going to be our waistband. So let me finish this and then we'll start the next step. Okay, so now at this point, we don't necessarily have a front and back just yet until we add the waistband. So at this point, I would just decide, if you did different colors like me, I would just decide which colors you want in the front, which colors you want in the back. because once we add the waistband, it will be side specific. I think I'll do these colors. Yeah, I think I'll do these colors in the front. So now that I have my front, I'm going to flip it over and we're going to start on the back. And we are going to start making our waistband. So to do so, we're going to start in the middle. So we have 3 granny squares. So it's going to be in the middle of our middle granny square is where we will start. So we'll attach our yarn. Attach our yarn to that middle space. Then chain 1. Okay, and then the first round, we're just going to place single crochets in every stitch, every space around. So go into every double crochet space, skip your chain 1 spaces. We want this to start to decrease to get to our hip measurement. That way it's not so big on our waist. So that's why we will be skipping the chain 1 spaces. Place your single crochets only into the double crochet spaces. And then I'm just crocheting over any tails so that I don't have to weave them in later. Okay, now that we're at the end of this, I'm going to skip that corner space. I am going to make a single crochet into the first corner space of the next granny square. And then I'm just going to continue into the double crochet spaces, placing a single crochet in each space. Okay, so we will do that all the way around. Place a single crochet in every double crochet space, skipping the chain 1 spaces. Every time you get to the end of a granny square, skip that corner chain 2 space, but go into the next chain 2 space of the next granny square. And then just continue your single crochets into the double crochet spaces. Okay, and then this we're going to continue all the way around until we get back to our first single crochet space. And then we will go on to round 2 of the waistband. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to finish my single crochet rounds, and then I'll meet you back at the beginning. Okay, now that we are back at the beginning of row 1, we're going to slip stitch into that first half double crochet space. And that is going to be row 1 for the waistband. For row 2, we're going to chain 3. Okay, and into the next 2 spaces, place a double crochet. Okay, now we're going to skip a stitch. In the next 2 spaces, place 2 double crochets, so 1 in each. Okay, so for this whole round, we're going to skip 1 stitch, place 1 double crochet, place 1 double crochet into the next stitch. Okay, skip a space, 2 double crochets, 1 into next stitch. Okay, and that's going to be round 2 again. It's another decrease row. So we will be doing skip a stitch. In the next 2 stitches, place 1 double crochet, skip a stitch. In the next 2 spaces, place a double crochet. Okay, and we are just going to repeat that all the way around. And then this will be our last decreasing row. And then we will start the ribbing part of our waistband. I'm going to go ahead and repeat that. Remember, it's 2 double crochets, skip a stitch, 2 double crochets into the next 2 stitches, skip 1 stitch, 2 double crochets into the next 2 stitches. I'll meet you back at the beginning and we will move on to round 3. Okay, so here I am at the end of round 2. I ended up having 1 stitch left. I'm actually going to skip that and slip stitch into the 3rd chain of the chain 3 space. And now I'm finished with round 2. Now we will go on to round 3. We will start by chaining 3. Okay, and then for this round, we are going to do, we're going to alternate between front post and back post double crochets. So my first one, I will do a front post. So to do that, we're going to go into the actual post of the previous stitch rather than the top of the stitch like normal. So we'll go around, go under that post, and do a double crochet. Okay, now back post, we will come around the back side of that. Okay, so I'll show again. We'll yarn over for a double crochet. We're going to go in through the back post. Instead of the front, this way is going to be the front. The back will go to the back side of the project. Under that post, place a double crochet. Okay, so I'll do it again. Front post will go right under, place a double crochet. Next one will be a back post, yarn over, go through the back side and under that post, place a double crochet. Yarn over, front post, and we're just going to continue this all the way around. Back post, through the back side and under. I feel like it's hard to show. I hope that this is making sense. Okay, front post. Back post. Okay, we're literally just going to continue this all the way around. And then we're going to do a couple rows of this. This is going to create the ribbing. Oops. I'm going to go ahead and finish this row. We're going to alternate front post and back post double crochets all the way around. Once I get back to the end, we'll move on to round 2. It's going to be the same thing. I think I'm going to continue my rows, and then I'll let you know how many I did. You pretty much will do that until you've reached the thickness that you would like your waistband. So I will go ahead and continue mine. I'll meet you back once I reach my desired height of my waistband, and then we will go from there. Okay, so I'm at the end of my round. I'm going to slip stitch into the chain 3 space of the chain 3 in the beginning. Chain 3. Okay, and then we are going to that first front post. We're going to go right back under that first front post and continue the same pattern. Okay, so we're alternating. We're doing front post, back post, right into the same ones from the previous round. Okay, now I'm going to continue mine. I'll meet you back once I finish my waistband. I'll let you know how many rounds I did. But again, you can do as many rounds as you like until you reach the measurement of the waistband that you would like. Okay, here I am. This is my last round. I did do a total of 5 rounds. I'm now going to slip stitch into the chain 3 space, chain 1, cut my yarn, and pull through. And then there we go, we have our waistband. Okay. So I did a total of 5 rounds for my waistband. You can do more or less. Just go until you reach the thickness you'd like. Okay, now we're going to move on to the ruffle. Again, we are going to start at the back. Okay, so again, we're going to attach our yarn to the very middle space at the bottom this time because we're doing our ruffle. So I'm going to go in here. This is going to be my middle point. Attach my yarn. Now, at this point, I do not want my skirt to get any longer. If you do want yours longer, you could either add more granny squares depending on how long you want it, or you can add a row or a couple rows of double crochets and then start your ruffle. I'm going to go straight into my ruffle, so I'm going to chain 3. I'm going to crochet over my yarn. I'm going to place 2 more double crochets into that space. Okay, and then into the next stitch, I'm going to place 3 double crochets. Okay, and then what we'll be doing now, I'm going to go into every single stitch, placing 3 double crochets into each stitch. This is going to start to create the ruffle. So 3 double crochets into every stitch. We're also going to place 3 double crochets into the chain 1 spaces. So into every chain space and every stitch of the bottom, we're going to place 3 double crochets. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do this. I'll meet you back at the end. Again, it's 3 double crochets into every stitch. That is including every chain space and every corner space around. Okay, and this is going to be row 1 of our ruffles. As you can see, it's starting to create a curve. I'm going to go ahead and finish that and meet back here at the beginning. Okay, here I am at the end of my first round of ruffles. I did 3 double crochets into every stitch. Now I'm going to slip stitch into the chain 3 space at the beginning. And then for round 2, I'm going to do the same thing, except this time I'm going to do 2 double crochets into every space. So we'll chain 3. Place a double crochet into that same space. And then 2 double crochets into every stitch around. Okay, so the first row we did 3 double crochets into every space. The second round we're going to do 2 double crochets into every space. And then we're going to do 1 more round, the third round of our ruffle skirt, which will be 1 double crochet into every space. Okay, so it'll be 3 rounds total. We'll do 3 double crochets, 2 double crochets, 1 double crochet. And then that will be the end of our ruffles. Okay, so I'm gonna finish my second round. I'm actually gonna go ahead and finish. I'm gonna finish this round. It's 2 double crochets in each space. Then I'll do my last round, my 1 double crochet in each space round. And then we'll be done and I'll meet you there. Okay, so I'm actually here at the end of my round 2. I actually decided that I like the length of this ruffle, so I'm not going to add a third round. You can still add a third round. It will make your ruffle longer. I'm going to stop here, so I'm going to slip stitch into the chain 3 space, chain 1, and cut my yarn. Okay, and then I am done. All we need to do now is weave in our ends. So we just need to weave in our ends. We should have the ends to all of our granny squares. we'll weave those ends in, and then the only other two should be for our beginning of our waistband and the end of our ruffle. Okay, so we'll go ahead and do that, and then we are finished. Okay, and there we have it. Our skirt is done. You can go ahead and add a drawstring if you'd like. I don't think I'm going to on mine. But that is all. I hope you found this pattern or this tutorial helpful. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next week. Bye.